I will look at the role of superintendent of schools as being the chief education officer who creates conditions to support the adults, who support the adults, who support the children. And we do so in three major macro buckets: culture, systems, and instruction. And really in that order. Like Drucker and so many other leadership folks have said over the years, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And education, I think culture eats strategy for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack time. And it's really starting to build that culture, measure what in fact culture is, and always remember that our heart is where we're leading from and with. Beyond our head, it's our heart first. Empathy, equity, development of others, these are cornerstones, the foundation of leadership.
Welcome to State of Ed, a podcast about education inside the classroom and out. My name is Mark Isix.
And I'm Nick Simone.
How are you today, Nick?
Doing very well. How are you?
Phenomenal. Today we have the incredible fortune to have two truly accomplished and distinguished school leaders in America. Dr. Nick Polyak serves as the superintendent for Layton Community High School District 212, which has been recognized by the College Board for its academic excellence and received 2 Magna Awards from the National School Board Association. For nearly a decade, Nick was the co-moderator of Superintendent Chat, which provided an international forum for school leaders around the world to collaborate, and he's also authored 5 books. Dr. Mike Lubelfeld, making his second appearance on State of Ed, is now in his 15th year as a superintendent, currently serving the North Shore School District 112. In his illustrious career in school leadership, Mike has received a number of awards, including Distinguished Alumni from Loyola University, as well as Superintendent of the Year in 2017. Mike has published several books as well, including a brand new title, which he co-authored with Nick, called Leading for Tomorrow's Schools Today. That will be available in 2025. Nick and Mike, welcome to State of Ed Podcast.
It is great to be here with you, Mark and Nick. Thank you for having us.
It's absolutely our pleasure. So let's start with something really positive and uplifting. What is going right with education today?
A lot. Nick, do you want to start because you're smarter than I am, or do you want me to start?
No, I never get to talk first. You can go ahead.
It's age before beauty, so that's how we do it. What's going right with education today? I will tell you, walking into any classroom, and I'm privileged that I get the opportunity to do so anytime I want here in North Shore School District 112, and you will see teachers passionately, professionally, and purposefully planning instruction for children, and children embracing these conditions of learning that we create every single day around the entire United States. We have children learning, children in conditions that are conducive to thinking and growing, and our teachers are some of the noblest and most passionate folks. What's good about education today is that we've got it, we're doing it, and there is so much that is really going on. It's like, what's really going on? We got children learning reading, writing, and arithmetic, and a whole lot more every single day. And I'm real proud to be a small part of it.
I guess, guys, I would add that a refocusing on career pathways and job-ready skills and credentials. We're seeing not only in our schools, but all around us, these amazing pathways and internships in schools. We're seeing dual credit, where kids are learning, now getting college credit and high school credit, but also getting to experience the career they think they want to do, so they can determine if that truly is the way they want to go with, the rest of their professional lives.
I love both of your optimism, positivity, and clearly, I'm sure that shows in your leadership. And I'd just be curious, how do you approach your role? Because the job of being a teacher is incredibly challenging. I think it's always been. Some people will argue that it's more challenging today. So as visionary leaders and obviously very, compassionate and passionate leaders, how do you approach your role to make sure that teachers continue to have that positivity that you guys have?
So it's awesome. So I will look at the role of superintendent of schools as being the chief education officer who creates conditions to support the adults, who support the adults, who support the children. And we do so in three major or macro buckets: culture, systems, and instruction. And really in that order. Like Drucker and so many other leadership folks have said over the years, culture eats strategy for breakfast and education. I think culture eats strategy for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack time. And it's really starting to build that culture, measure what in fact culture is, and always remember that our heart is where we're leading from and with, beyond our head. It's our heart first. Empathy, equity, development of others. These are cornerstones, the foundation of leadership and philosophy, and really stopping in with that personal touch and simply saying, hello, how's it going? How are you? And then with decision-making and things of systems and structures, always making sure that you're not only eliciting teacher voice and opinions and thoughts and participation, you're listening to it, and you're either acting on the recommendations they shared with you, or if you're not, explaining that you heard it and here's why you're going in a different direction. And then ultimately, you've got instruction, which is going to be to help create those conditions with resources, with training, with support, with encouragement, focusing on the learning and the growth of each student. Nick?
Yeah, I thought maybe I was going to get to go first on this one, Mike, but thank you for I always go back to my role is creating a culture of innovation. The world is changing at a crazy pace, and our schools need to be mindful of that so that we're relevant to our kids' needs to go into the world that they're going to go into. We can't just keep doing what we do. So as a leader, my job is to encourage, celebrate, support innovation and risk-taking, whether it, good or bad outcomes. We have to keep trying new things. And so I tell people sometimes I feel like my job is horizon watcher. I need to be the person on the pirate ship up in the crow's nest, looking out further than everyone else and saying, let's go this way. And so to provide that direction, you got to be able to see further, see around the corner.
Can I ask a question? As the horizon watcher, are you using an astrolabe?
Yourself, Mike.
That's just an age of exploration, callback.
Thank
That's
you.
all that is.
Thank you, Mark.
I'm with you. Well, Nick and I taught social studies for years and years.
Nothing better.
Yeah.
Well, Nick still teaches social studies.
Nick still,
Right,
sort of.
exactly, yes. Yeah.
He's my assistant principal. He doesn't even know what I teach. This is unbelievable.
You know what?
I don't have my schedule with me.
The higher up we go, the less we know. We don't know anything.
No, I know that you teach social studies.
And Mark still goes into the classroom every chance he gets. So like if I'm absent for a conference, so he'll come into my class, he'll teach any opportunity he gets. And that is
I love it.
I
love it. Like I honestly, I'm going to date myself with like an 80s, gaming reference, but you used to eat like a power pellet in a game and your energy bar would go all the way up. For me, like when I go into a classroom and just start teaching, just extemporaneously, doesn't matter what the class is, just engaging with the kids, getting them thinking about things. Like it doesn't matter what's going on that day. I literally come out of there like with all the energy. I feel like I'm 25 years old again. I absolutely love it and try to do it, like Nick said, every opportunity that I get. Both of you love this concept from your previous books about the unfinished educator, unfinished leader, unfinished teacher. What does that mean? What is an unfinished educator, and how do they become finished?
I'm going to let Nick start on that one.
I was going to interrupt you if you didn't.
Well, Mark, I think the beautiful part about that question is, Mike and I get to talk to folks, and we often we hear people say, oh, I want to be the best version of myself, or I want to help people be the best version of themselves. We push back kind of politely and say, there's no such thing as the best version of you. There's only the next version of you. Every one of us is in a constant iterative process. The same is true of our buildings, our districts, of the world. And so the idea of being unfinished is to lean into that as a good thing, that there's always going to be something new I need to learn because the world is changing and my kids are changing. And so it's okay to be unfinished. And in fact, there is no such thing as finished.
That was a really awesome answer. I'm briefly going to add that Nick P.J. Capozzi and I wrote The Unfinished Leader, a school leadership framework for growth and development with the backdrop of the pandemic, really impacting us as three leaders trying to say, we're going to get through this. We're going to figure it out like the rest of our brethren across the United States and the globe. What are some lasting foundational leadership, philosophical and actionable takeaways that we've gotten? In the book, there's a how-to section after each chapter. And really it was leading with empathy to start with for that relationship and that human connection, leading with equity, meeting people where you're with what they need, not what you think they need, but where what they need, developing others and yourself, adapting and being flexible and being nimble and all of that, communicate, and then communicate 10 times more. And then focus on the concept that we define being unfinished as is not fearing change, is not letting others hold you back, and is not letting others live in what we call the trois-D. That's the way we've always done it. So it's unfinished because you're always going to get better and do better and want to learn better, yet there's always going to be the work, and it's our job to be the next version of ourselves, as we say.
So can I ask you both a question? Because I love this concept, and Nick and I wholeheartedly agree with everything that you're saying. But in a world of standardization in education and in a world of high stakes assessments and accountability, which brings with it rigidity. So here you are preaching and talking about the value of flexibility. So how do you carve out and create space for all of this wonderful flexibility in a system that seemingly is increasingly more and more rigid by the day?
I'm going to tell you this. By focusing on something called student engagement, student agency, student voice, student empowerment, by embracing George Soros' innovator's mindset, not changing for the sake of change, changing to create something better. And here in District 112, we have a very high stakes community, very high intensity community, highly educated, very invested and involved folks. So yeah, student achievement and student growth are also measures and metrics we share with the public schools. We're accountable. What's more important, though, than that is culture and growth. And we measure staff culture, we report it. We measure family satisfaction, we report it. We measure student engagement, and it's our principals who are able to work with our teachers to engage in the dimensions of student engagement, such as student choice, student voice, student relevance, perceptions of relevance on the material, student actual satisfaction. That's where the secret sauce is. You've got curriculum that the state or the nation come up with. You've got assessment that is really aligned to publishers and politics. And you've got instruction where you can blend the art and science of teaching. So I like to value as a systems leader that sweet spot of instruction and engagement. That's how I like to fight back a little bit, so to speak.
Mark, I've lived through that. You have to use this scripted, lesson plan for the kids, and you have to do these sample test questions to get them ready to take the test. And it makes me sick to my stomach to think that's how we use our time with kids. So I'll give you a brief use case for us. We, a number of years ago, asked for a group of teachers to raise their hands to join a group we called the Innovation Incubator. And so we had teachers from all different departments said, I'll be a part of this. And we gave them some time and space. We gave them the capacity to go travel and visit other schools and other states. And we just said, come up with something that you want to try different. We'll support you. And if it works, we'll scale it. And so after a period of time, what they finally created was a brand new version of freshman year that was standards-based, project-based. It was, instead of separating all the content areas, they married them all together. And they let kids learn in this collaborative way with a team of teachers. And, that butts up against the rigidity you're talking about. The traditional teachers who weren't part of the group said, wait a minute, a kid in this capacity can't learn biology in the same way that I teach biology. They can't learn English in the same way I teach English. And it took us showing the standardized test scores were just as good or better at the end of that process. And the kids had built these collaborative skills, public speaking, confidence, community awareness. But it took us taking the risk and giving permission to do the same things, but do them in a different way.
But there's a leap of faith involved there. I'm thinking of Indiana Jones. What was the movie? The one with Sean Connery, right? Where he has to take that step out, what seemingly is into an abyss, but it's actually a bridge that he can't see. But it's a leap of faith. And you took that and you empowered your teachers, you empowered your staff, and you supported that kind of growth and change. It has to come from all over. It can't just be one level in the organization. It has to really be everybody supporting everyone, and being aligned in the mission.
But Mark, I'll tell you, I've been superintendent here for 12 years now. I couldn't have done that in year 1 or year 2 of my superintendency. I didn't have the trust. I didn't have the credit built up with the community, with the staff. And so with some continuity, that builds trust over time. And then there's some, I don't want to say freedom, but there's some leverage given to take those risks.
Cachet, right?
Mark wants to cut this question out. He can, but I could listen to the two of you speak forever, and I would desperately want to work for both of you. But I'm going to ask like a very specific question going back to what you were talking about with the unfinished teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So, Nick, I loved your answer that, we're never finished, correct? And that's because, and I agree with you both, there's always ways to improve. There's always ways to do things differently, innovate, take risks. I get all of that. So I'm going to ask a question. I hate that I'm even asking it. When you have to sit down in your districts and you have to evaluate teachers, something that I do not enjoy doing for only one reason. I don't like having to give them a rating at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Are you forced to do that? Because if you are, I'm curious how you handle all of this talk about taking risks and being innovative and being unfinished, and how do teachers respond when you do have to give them a rating at the end?
So I love that. So I will tell you, in Illinois, sadly, we are required to do that. And it can be very perfunctory, and it can be very sterile, and it can be very dogmatic. I'm very proud that our principals here in my school district, so I can speak personally to the school district, our principals are the ones who do all the teacher evaluation. As superintendent, I evaluate a couple of the principals. So we treat our principals with this unfinished mindset. And we're using, in our district, a new Illinois Principal Association evaluation tool for principals that's based on the paradigm of school leadership. That's an infinity loop, Nick and Mark, that is really you're becoming while doing. So it's philosophically very aligned with what Nick and I are talking about with being unfinished. Our teachers union with our administrators over the past couple of years shifted our evaluation from the Danielson framework, which evolved away from what Danielson herself actually believed in back in the 90s, to a very sterile system, to the Marzano system, which really does take into the greater element of the art of teaching. So to the degree that evaluation can be less rigid and perfunctory, as I'm saying, our principals ideally are creating conditions for our teachers where under the Marzano tool, the top rating is under the category of innovation. Now, that in and of itself is philosophically more aligned to what we're saying. So is it a perfect system? No, of course not. Ultimately, we don't want perfect to be the enemy of good. Ideally, we're creating the vibe for our principals where it's okay to take risks and make some mistakes here and there, that they create that same vibe for their teachers. And I feel that using the Marzano system is a better system that we're using here than what we've had in years past.
You're giving me more homework. Now I got to look that up as well.
It's worth it. It's good. It's good.
I will. Thank you.
Nick, the only thing I'll add to Mike's answer is we are required in Illinois to use student growth data in the evaluation process. We made the decision many years ago to mute that component, to use one set of data across the entire school district so that everyone for that component uses the same data results. And we did that very specifically so we didn't breed competition and stunt collaboration. Because if the four of us are all teaching fourth grade and the numbers decline in the district and one of us has to go, that disincentivizes me from sharing my good ideas with the three of you because I could be jeopardizing my job. And we didn't want that to ever be the case, to where people didn't want to share. So we muted the growth data piece and made it collective for that reason.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's great. And to be honest, I like data, I respect data, but I also don't believe that you can use the data points that we collect to truly tell you the impact that an adult is having in the life of a child. There are just too many things that aren't recorded, and if they are recorded, they're not really recorded accurately to show you the effect, positively or negatively, to be fair. But there's just so much that the data can't tell you. But you as the leader, you as the observer, you living in and walking throughout the school building and seeing it and feeling it, it's in the air, so you can detect it, but the numbers don't necessarily bear that out. So I know you do a lot of work training superintendents. So can you just take us through what are the steps in training someone to take on this kind of level of leadership, especially in a time when it's really difficult to be a school leader, maybe as more difficult than ever? How do you do it?
I wish we could take the magic beans, plant them in the garden, and climb that mythical beanstalk. Those were the days. Nick and I have been blessed with opportunity after opportunity and professional association and mentors, guides, coaches, and guardian angels who, for the last 35 years for me and 25 years for Nick, have helped us on a path forward. So part of it is we're in a community. We're in a community of leaders, and we're in a network of leaders, and we may know nothing, or we may be two knuckleheads from Chicago, and others have helped infuse ideas in our heads or given us opportunities to facilitate opportunities. So what we do is we've been blessed to work with the AASA, the American Association of School Administrators, the School Superintendents Association, as well as the IASA, the Illinois Association of School Administrators. And we have taken a framework of leadership and national standards of leadership, PISL, NISL, others. And what we've done is we've said, okay, what is it that people who aren't in the seat need to know from two people who are in the seat, who've gone through multiple election cycles, have worked with multiple boards of education and members, who've gone through levies and bonds and millages, who've gone through discipline, in our case is obviously the worldwide global pandemic, in my case, a community-based school shooting and other horrible untoward things. What is it that we can do for people that think they've got the leadership, that have been coached and guided like we have to go pursue the leadership? And what is it that they need to know beyond the technical competencies and expertise that they learned in the graduate school, the master's or beyond programs? And we have a lot of fun together. And what we do is we've created either intense multiple-day boot camps or summer camps, or we've created 12-month programs, online or on ground. And what we basically do, before I let Nick give you the details, is we have hands-on portfolio-based learning that is going to be something that leaders who are going to take the leap of faith into these roles can really rest on and borrow from as they go through the work, and then they can become better at it. So Nick, do you want to fill in some of the gaps about what that it is?
Yeah, I can a little bit. When we were in college to become teachers, we took all the classes that certified us to be teachers, but I didn't learn how to be a teacher till I student taught.
Exactly.
And then I went and I took all these classes to become a superintendent. And then I took a job and I felt wholly unprepared because there's no student teaching for superintendency, right? And so we've tried to be very realistic in the professional development we provide to make it very scenario-based, to put people in superintendent-like positions in a safe place and let them wrestle with it among friends. And then we critique one another and we try to grow collaboratively through that. And so the idea is, we tell everybody at the start of a program, we're here to demystify that word superintendent, because you may be really good at curriculum and you're very scared of finance. You might be really good at working with parents, but you're scared to death of a board of education. So let's identify the area that we can bolster up for you and make it a strength area. I think that's really kind of core to we could talk about individual activities and the ways we do it, but that's the core philosophy.
Can I then add, do you think the best superintendents are the ones that are willing to admit that there are areas that they're not great at?
Amen, Nick.
Yeah.
The
I mean,
best superintendents lead with humility and the Tim McGraw song, humble and kind. Absolutely, yes. Amen. Absolutely.
Nick, we've been collectively superintendents for 31 years now, and we've seen people come and we've seen people go. And it's those type A, very aggressive, self-important people who we've seen come into the job and then go away from the job. The people that are humble, that build networks and connect, those are the ones that thrive. That's what we try to instill.
no, I love that, because nobody can be an expert. Nobody has enough time in their life to have spent 15 to 20 years in curriculum, 15 to 20 years in personnel, 15 to 20 years in technology, 15 to 20 years on a board of. Nobody has that time. So I, as you're speaking, I'm saying to myself, I think the best superintendents are the ones that admit it's okay not to be an expert in everything.
And sometimes it's not cockiness. It's that they have the title and they feel like they're supposed to have the answers. And so they'll fake it. They'll come off arrogant, and it just breaks people. The ability to say, I don't know, but I know where to get the help.
Love that. When you're describing that, it sounds to me like you are teaching your students, the future superintendents, that the work is important, but don't take yourself too seriously.
Yes.
Is that right?
It doesn't matter how many stars you have on your shoulder. It doesn't matter if you're in a fancy office in the corner of a building. It doesn't matter if people say, oh my goodness, it's the superintendent. You're still the same guy that puts the pants on one leg at a time, ties the shoes or slips them in. And guess what? You simply have a different set of duties on your job posting or your job description than everybody else in the organization. Doesn't make you any better or worse, makes you different. And the bottom line is you've got levels of teams with whom you're working to create this magic for these kids and for the teachers each and every day. I don't know about everything, and I'm okay telling the school board, I need your help, folks. A great question. You want me to look into it? I really have never explored this. I've never experienced it. It doesn't mean I'm a failure. Doesn't mean you made a mistake in selecting me or hiring me. It means you're presenting a leadership challenge for me that I'm equipped with enough knowledge. I've got to give a phone call to the association, or I've got to go do a little research at the university. I've got to call some colleagues. Please give me some time to find out, but I'm not going to pretend. I'm not going to make it up.
And I think a lot of people do that, though. They feel the pressure to provide an answer. And then even if the answer is wrong, now they have to stand by it because I've just provided an answer. And how can I be, I have to be infallible, at least create the veneer of being infallible.
Well, that's
destructive.
Well, it is. And I'll tell you, one of the things we do when we have an opportunity, we invite our school board presidents into our workshop to do, a 45-minute to 60-minute interaction with the students. So they'll do a 5-10 minute, introduction. But then the key is, what should aspiring superintendents know from a board? Because a lot of people are most fearful of finance and board relations, because those are things that most of the folks going up to the administration don't have. Well, both of our board presidents and all of our board presidents have the elegance and compassion and have really shared with these aspiring superintendents. Folks, the board members selected you and hired you because they believe in you and they want you to succeed. Ask the board members for help. We're all human beings. We're all people. So have a real conversation. Be real. As Nick and I say, when you're looking for that superintendency, be your authentic self for the school board. When that's enough, that's the right board for you. Because if it isn't going to be today, tomorrow, or next Tuesday. It never will be. So set yourself up for success and set your board up for success. But the board wants you to be successful.
Great advice.
I don't know that I have anything to add to that.
Do you guys work on the college level doing anything in these programs?
So for many years, I have been an adjunct faculty member, adjunct instructor, lecturer for Loyola University Chicago, for National Louis University in Chicago and Wheeling, Illinois. Over the last couple of years, I've taken a little bit of hiatus because this particular job has been a bit more strenuous, shall I say. But when I do, transition from this type of work full-time, my next set of work full-time hopefully will be at the university level in principal preparation.
That's great. Nick, are you interested in that as well, or?
I've taught at the college level a little bit in the past, not recently, mostly because I've got 4 children. All of my, whenever I'm not superintendenting, I'm chasing them around all of their stuff. But I think there will come a time where I'll get back to it as well.
Because you're the type of people that should be, teaching these courses for future administrators.
Well, thank you.
Let me shift gears for a second. One of the buzzwords right now is artificial intelligence. There's no running from it. We know that it's disrupting all of life. It's clearly education is not an exception to that. So what is the one thing that you're most optimistic about when it comes to AI? And what is the one thing that you're most concerned about?
I'll go first, Mike, because I know you have a lot to say on this topic. He's a little analytical when it comes to AI. The meeting I was in just prior to speaking with all of you today was with a state consultant, and we're looking to be part of a pilot in the state of Illinois to build AI models to support our faculty and community, where, I think we're going to start with kind of an internal HR AI assistant, where when you have a question about your benefits or the contract, historically, you've always had to go open the document or call someone and ask. We're going to start to train AI assistants that'll be available to our folks where they can interact with the model to get their answers. And once we dial that thing in, the next thing we want to move to is a community-based AI assistant where it knows our handbook, our course planning guide, it knows every document in our website, it knows our athletic schedule and our lunch schedule. So people can go and just ask it any question, and we'll have trained it to support people in real time. So that's an exciting thing that we're doing. The scary thing to me comes in the unregulation of all this, and that we're seeing awful things happen to young ladies throughout the country. And we're seeing videos that replicate superintendents that look like they're saying and doing things that they're not. And so there's kind of a scary specter of there's no boundaries on this right now.
So I'll start with the fear, and then I'll give you 3 points, knowing that we're, concise on time, so we don't put your listeners to sleep. All right. So for those of you who remember Star Trek: The Next Generation, my fear is that resistance is futile. It is the Borg. So that's one thing, right? Right now I'm reading the book Genesis by the late Dr. Henry Kissinger and Eric Schmidt and another really thoughtful leader. I've read Dr. Fei-Fei Li, The World's IC, and Dr. Ethan Malik, Co-Intelligence, among others. Since November 2022, 2023, I've been curious and interested. Since February 2024, I've been deeply invested in my own personal professional growth development and the personal growth and development for North Shore School District 112. I learned about Magic School AI, one of the many, but one of the few focused on data privacy, and then more data privacy. In our school district in May, we adopted guidelines and policy standards that are based upon TeachAI, OpenAI, and the United States Department of Education. We're embracing the hope, opportunity, and possibilities so that teachers can be more efficient and improve what they're doing, so we don't just replicate mediocre practices, but we encourage superstar practices and make those more efficient. And so we increase literacy so our students are better informed and fully informed as to why we're going to protect them from certain of these generative artificial intelligence bots. And we have launched expected outcomes of exploration, experimentation, and no boundaries other than a complete prohibition on putting in personally identifiable information. So in our school district, we've got about 550 employees. And right now, in real time, 399 of our employees have engaged with Magic School AI 19,029 times from January 2024 to date. That's a real statistic. About 40 of our teachers are really heavily involved. So I don't want to mislead at all. What I'm saying is that there's an encouragement of exploring. There's an encouragement of trying. We also have a pilot with School AI. I'm not recommending or opposed to any companies. I use OpenAI's ChatGPT every single day. I pay the $20 a month out of my own pocket. I understand that a large language model knows nothing and that ChatGPT has zero expertise. I understand that a large language model is skilled in language patterns, knowing nothing. So I'm not pretending that there's some magic robots out there that are smarter than I am. They're not. I'm a founding member of the human intelligence movement because I believe humans will always be here. It should never be replaced, especially in education. I've personally led professional development in my school district to help teachers demystify the large language models. I also use Google's Notebook LM on a regular basis, and I've interacted in beta mode with the Google robots who sound like a man and sound like a woman, but are robots who don't. I understand that hallucinations or false information are prevalent because generative AI large language models are designed to be sycophants or sycophants. They're designed to give you a response whether it knows what it's talking about or not, which means your human intelligence and critical thinking skills are all that matters when we're teaching children how to engage and interact with this. I also know that mathematics is not its jam because it's designed on language. I'm a fan of Sal Khan and I understand his new book, Brave New Word, and I believe in Conmigo and the egalitarian desire to bring educational excellence and technical competence and content to everybody in the world. So I think that generative AI is and should be in use everywhere with knowledge, guidance, forethought, foresight, and a functional, foundational demonstration and illustration of human intelligence first. I'm afraid that resistance is futile because it is really more powerful than we are. And I read something yesterday on Perplexity, another AI tool that says even more is saying that Moore's law may now be eclipsed by the exponential speed with which these language models are accessing information. I hope that was concise enough. And as Nick, I'm into this.
Wow. Mark's going to have a tough time picking out which part of that he
All of it.
sends on his social media platform.
All of it.
Yeah, get it down a little bit.
All of it. Well, this answers the question how you're able to write so many books, because your ability to just unpack like these really complicated ideas in long form responses, like seemingly like instantly in your head is, I'm really jealous. I'm not going to lie to you, Mike. I mean, that's extraordinary. A large language model should be looking to you for, inspiration for how to produce really substantive answers so quickly. It's amazing.
No,
Nick, I love what your district is doing, just using AI to streamline some basic, communication that will just make everybody's life a little bit easier. So that was very encouraging.
I do want to give a sincere shout out to Latimer AI, LATIMER.ai. It is an AI designed to have the perspectives of non-white people, indigenous peoples, Black people, brown people, so that there is less bias in the large language models that are being trained on what is predominantly a white Eurocentric base of knowledge. And I'll give you an interesting real life example. In our district, we were doing a community book study on the 4 Pivots by Dr. Sean Ginwright, an African-American scholar. And I went to ChatGPT and Gemini and OpenAI, not OpenAI, Copilot, and I said, give me a summary of the 4 pivots. And it was really unable to do so. And I went to Latimer AI, and in a second, I got what the 4 pivots were. So right there in a very sort of, impulsive study on this, it's real. Latimer just came up with a Google Chrome extension. If it's permissible in your school district's technology world, and if not, go to your personal one for a bias check. And I think it's incumbent upon us all as we promote these tools and we expose our students to it and our teachers to it, we're conscious of it's only as knowledgeable as its database. And as I mentioned, it knows nothing. It only can understand patterns.
I love that explanation of large language models because it really hits it on the head, because a lot of people turn to it for knowledge, and it's not knowledge. It's something other that we have to really develop a true understanding of. Do both of you or either of you use MTSS in your district? So you should definitely check out. We had them on the podcast from New Light. They have a product called IntelliTier that uses AI in a very safe way because they're super dedicated to compliance and privacy and everything else. These two really unbelievably brilliant guys. We had each of the co-founders on in previous episodes. And IntelliTier is their product that is taking AI and basically using MTSS, but at the speed of light to meet the needs of students, really streamlining the process and creating efficiencies where usually been a lot of inefficiency in terms of getting to the correct intervention. I'd be happy to connect you, both of you guys with them because they're extraordinary and wouldn't you agree, Nick? They're just like absolutely super brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
We were going to ask them about their new book, correct?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So do you guys want to talk a little bit about the work behind that and really who you think it's, who's your audience, who's your target audience for the book?
Nick, why don't you get started? Because the audience for our book is everybody and anybody, especially anyone listening to this podcast interview, and then everyone you know.
The wonderful.
Mark, you should send that out.
Of course.
Yeah. Leading for Tomorrow's Schools Today is actually the subtitle of our first book, The Unlearning Leader. And so many years later, we came back to that topic and we created a change framework. And I'll let Mike talk to you about the change framework. But we tried to give practical examples of things in our school district that have seen significant educational change and running it through the framework as to how you can successfully take it from idea to reality, giving people actionable things to follow so that maybe they can apply it back in their districts. And so that's kind of the model and the idea around Leading for Tomorrow's Schools Today. Mike, you want to talk about change?
I do. So we have 8 case studies. Some are from our actual practice within the last decade, and others are from the universe and just general practice. And our change leadership framework reflects the following. We invite you to challenge the status quo as your starting point. We invite you to have open conversations, and really that means listening to twice as much as you're speaking. It also means that you're going to adapt and be flexible, which is a cornerstone to any change, because no matter what your plans are, there's going to be shifts, and we want you to challenge the status quo. H, have open conversations. A, adapt and be flexible. N is navigate those obstacles. So if you didn't get it from the A, that adapt and be flexible is inherent in that there's going to be obstacles. The N is you're going to navigate obstacles. Then we say in G, generate a shared vision. Now, it isn't mission, vision, value, goals. Nothing wrong with that. What we're saying, it's different. We're saying generate your shared vision after you've challenged the status quo, after you've had some open conversations, after you've already adapted and been flexible and you've navigated obstacles, because after you've generated that shared vision, it's time to execute. Enjoy the journey. CHANGE. We have chapter titles that include Go Where the Smart People Are, and it's a case study about networking, professional networks. We have a chapter called We're Not Broke, We're Broken. And it's a case study of a school district in change and transformation.
It's great.
So let me see if we can bring this conversation to a close with this very challenging question. If you could reduce your leadership style to one word, what would it be and why?
Effusive.
I knew I should have brought a dictionary to this podcast.
I do get inspired and energized by other people. I get energized and inspired by actually setting out plans that come with input from others, not necessarily through consensus, but as much consensus as is practical and possible. And then I get very excited about the execution of those plans, whether that execution led to success ideally, or even if it led to opportunities for growth and improvement and change in reality. And I love to share that, celebrate it, and communicate it. That's my one word for today. effusive.
I'm
Nick,
gonna
he bought
go-
you some time. You owe him one.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. He's bought me a lot of time in my life. You have no, I'm going to go with situational. I've got, 700 employees here and 3,500 students, and they all need a little something different, right? Each principal that we work with needs a different version of me to support them. Each assistant superintendent has different skill sets and needs me to challenge them and support them in different ways. And so I think I really see the leadership challenge is understanding every situation I'm in and being the person that they need me to be in that moment, right? I think that's where the art and the science of leadership comes together.
I loved your answers, and I think you can relate it to teaching as well, because if teachers are not effusive in their instructional practices, and if they don't recognize that every child is situationally different, they're never going to be as successful as they can be. So you put that together, the teacher in the room will use that in some way at my next meeting. So I thank you for that.
Love it. Wonderful. It's awesome. Thank you.
And that's the yin yang of your relationship, because I could see that now. Like, you connect and you complete the other person in so many different ways in terms of your skill sets and where your focus is. It's amazing. And Mike, you said go where the smart people are, and that's exactly what Nick and I did today on this podcast. We went with it where the smart people are, and we're so happy to have both of you on the podcast, and really just can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for all the work that you do. Thank you so much for the impact that you're making in your respective school districts, and not just that, but how you share your expertise and your passion for learning and leadership with others, and trying to groom them into leaders who can not just be like you, but exceed and go beyond the achievements that you've attained in your time. And Mike, I do want to publicly thank you for the amazing blurb that you wrote, which is permanently affixed to the back of my book, Captivate. I really can't thank you enough for that, and extra special thank you from me.
Everybody should
there.
get that book, Captivate by Mark Isix. It is an excellent book. It is a great read. Everyone needs it. It is for our time, and it will help make you a better person.
Thank you. You're my forever hype man. I do appreciate that. If you would like to catch previous episodes of State of Ed Podcast, you can check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon. Or you can find us on the web at stateofedpodcast.com, where you'll find links to what we've discussed. We'll also give you the socials and how you can get in touch with and follow both Nick and Mike on social media. You can follow me on Twitter at Mark6, or online at mark6.com, or on YouTube at edupyro, EDUPYRO. And as Mike very graciously mentioned, you can check out my new book, Captivate, Engaging and Empowering Students in a World of Digital Distractions. It's available on Amazon, and be a great read for all educators. Thank you for joining us today, gentlemen. We truly appreciate your time and sharing your expertise.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it very much.